U.S. Congressman Randy Fine, staunch Zionist, is now coming forward stating that J.D. Vance's comments about Israel yesterday are frankly disgusting and inappropriate. So this is pretty interesting. And then he also started saying anybody but J.D. Vance for president in 2028. Take a listen to this video and then let's talk about it.
J.D. Vance from the podium yesterday, chastising critics of this deal coming from Israel. That was pretty unprecedented by J.D. Vance. I'm surprised he went that far.
Yeah, look, I thought JD's comments yesterday were absolutely inappropriate and frankly disgusting. The state of Israel was not created by the United States. It is not funded by the United States, except in some small way. It was created in the blood and sweat and tears of the Jewish people arising out of the Holocaust. The United States didn't support Israel during its formation. In fact, there were times when it put arms embargoes in place. And J.D. Vance would be wise to go back and learn his history. I think his comments today were completely out of line.
So I'm definitely going to really dissect this. I want to also show you what he posted on his X account. He stated ABJD 2028, anybody but JD Vance 2028. So, I mean, the guy's not happy about it. Now, what's funny is he stated Israel received no aid from the United States except from a tiny, tiny way. Now, let me actually pull up how much aid Israel has received from the United States. Israel's received over, and oh gosh, I'm really gonna break down the numbers for you guys. Israel's received over $330 billion in aid from the United States. This is going all the way up to the year, what is this? All the way up to 2024. The past 2 years, it's added on even more. This is adjusted for inflation. However, I think it's insincere. It's very insincere to just count the aid that we're giving to Israel directly. We have to count the aid that we give to Jordan, and we have to count the aid that we give to Egypt. Because we give Jordan and Egypt aid to make them cushions of Israel. That's why we give them aid. We want to make sure they have strong governments, so that way those governments never have regime change, and they never end up having an anti-Israel government in place. That's why we give them money. So we have to add that on. And when we do add that on, now we're at about 530 billion, but we become 506 billion once you add on Israel and Egypt. Jordan has received about $33 billion in aid since 1951 after adjusting for inflation. We're about over $500 billion. A trillion. That's not it though. Because it's also very insincere if we don't count the costs of the war on terror. Because the whole war on terror was an Israeli project. The war on terror, Operation Clean Break, the operation created back in 1998 by Netanyahu himself, that was proposed to the Pentagon to basically knock out every government that sponsors groups that are resisting Israel, every single one. That entire project was concocted by Israel, pushed at the Pentagon by Zionists inside the U.S. government and the Mossad as well, just directly. And that entire project, the war on terror, without including inflation, just $7 trillion with a T, trillion dollars. Okay, this is not in counting this $500 billion. And we're not even talking about all of the other things, the diplomatic impact of being with Israel. If we took Israel out of the equation right now, our national debt is nearing 40 trillion. You could safely knock off $10 trillion. After you think about the interest and everything else, safely knock off $10 trillion. You know how much better the United States would be? What is the US current GDP? The US current GDP is the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio is what I was looking for. We're at 121% debt to GDP ratio. Now, for a healthy country, you want around a 90% debt to GDP ratio. That means you're a healthy country, you're growing, but we're already at 121%. The U.S. gross domestic product is 32 million. The U.S. GDP is about $32.2 trillion. So the GDP now is less than the cost of our national debt. That's not good. That for a healthy country, that's considered not good. This happened because of Israel. Guess what's pretty interesting? We'd be right around 98% or so if we knocked off support for Israel. We knocked off the war on terror, which was an Israeli project. That's where we would be right now. You know why we should just knock off the war on terror? Because it was the most unnecessary project that caused the most amount of bloodshed that never needed to happen. Never needed to happen. Think about it. Why did it happen? We knocked out all of Israel's enemies. You don't think that maybe a settlement between the two-state solution that they keep trying to enforce, this two-state solution, you don't think if that was actually enforced by a president, then all of this war that Israel pushed would have needed to be necessary? Every single one of these wars that Israel stated was so important for the United States to knock out all of these countries. Would the United States had to have done all of that if there was already a peace settlement in place? Absolutely not. Things would have been much different. Israel wouldn't have been this war hungry. Israel wouldn't have been this expansive. Now, can you blame everything on Israel? No. But what I can tell you is Middle East foreign policy would be drastically different because it should have never been this way. I previously showed you guys this video, and don't worry, I'm going to show you also what JD Vance said.
I watched Mossad take over the Pentagon in 2002. The Pentagon was infiltrated by Mossad. They did not need any identification to get through the river entrance of the building. They went upstairs to Douglas Feith, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, the third most powerful man in the Defense Department. Occasionally, they went to the second most powerful man, Paul Wolfowitz, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and they had run of the Pentagon. Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, said to my boss one time, "Hell, I don't run my building. Mossad does."
Mossad does. This was stated, he was referring to 2002. This is Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. This was regarding back in 2002. Israel pushed us into all of these wars. So that's the first thing. He gets so mad at JD Vance that he's saying anybody but JD Vance for 2028. I want you guys to understand how concerning that is, because what's the alternative? The only realistic alternative right now in the Republican Party is Marco Rubio. That is a big danger. That's a big danger. It doesn't get spoken about enough how dangerous Marco Rubio is. If you guys think Trump is bad, unfortunately, just wait, because Marco Rubio is unlike anything anybody's seen before. I keep bringing up Marco Rubio because I'm like sounding the alarm on how much we need to keep this guy as far away from the presidency as possible. I want to show you guys. This is a press statement from 2016 that's still up regarding Marco Rubio. Rubio campaign press release when he was running for office. Fact check: Donald Trump is no ally to Israel. He was trashing Donald Trump based on how supportive Donald Trump is to Israel. Let's actually play this clip right here.
Keeping this country safe.
I want to go back to the Israeli government's assertion that the Palestinian Authority is inciting the convulsion of violence. Do you agree?
Well, that's undeniable. First of all, they've said that they've encouraged people to do so, and you've seen the speeches of the Palestinian Authority president talking about how glorious this is that they're doing these sorts of things. But let me go back for a moment. The policy Donald has outlined, I don't know if he realizes, is an anti-Israeli policy. Maybe that's not your intent, but here's why it is an anti-Israeli policy. There is no peace deal possible with the Palestinians at this moment. There just isn't, because there's no one to negotiate with. The Palestinian Authority is not interested in a serious deal, and they are now in union with Hamas, an organization whose specific purpose is the destruction of the Jewish state. Every time that Israel has turned over territory of any kind, be it Gaza or now in Judea and Samaria, it is used as a launching pad.
Do you see what he said? Judea and
Israel.
Samaria.
And that's what will happen again. These groups are not interested in a deal with Israel. What they are interested in is ultimately removing the Jewish state and occupying its entire territory. So maybe in 30 years the conditions will exist, but they do not exist now. And to have a president forcing the Israelis to the table is harmful to Israel and emboldens Israel's enemies.
Mr. Trump, a response, and we'll go to Governor Cook.
That's the guy that somebody like Randy Fine would want in office. He can't even say the word West Bank. He said Judea and Samaria. You guys understand what that means? He expects that Israel takes over the entire West Bank. That's who somebody like Randy Fine would want in office. I've said this before, and I think that I'm just going to say it again. I know people kind of just don't know this. I think some of the most neocon people in the United States are actually Cuban Americans, conservative Cuban Americans. One of my best friends, Alex, he's a Cuban American. His parents are conservative, and he will vouch for this as well. So war hawky, like they are ready to blow up any country that is any country that the Republican establishment wants to blow up. A conservative Cuban American Republican will be right there, the first ones to vouch for it. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, either 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 6 Cuban Americans currently in Congress, the most staunch neocons you can ever meet. Now, this is because of historical reasons. They came to the United States in exile. from Cuba. So obviously they have their own qualms against where they're from, and they have this very, very anti-communist sentiment, which is understandable based on where they're from. When they come to the United States, if they go into politics, if they're in the Republican Party, you will bet that they will be ready to blow up any country in support of war. That's a massive generalization. Am I aware of that? Yes. Are there people that are not that in are there people that don't represent every single community? Yes. Cuban American Republicans, though, so neocon. Marco Rubio, perfect representation of that. Ted Cruz, perfect representation of that. Cuban Americans in Republican Party in Congress, perfect representation of that. And what's interesting though is, he says himself, he doesn't want a peace deal. That's what's on the table right now. What's more concerning is the fact that he's young, meaning that if he doesn't win the presidential race in 2028, he'll be right there again for 2032, right there again for 2036, right there again for 2040. He's just going to keep popping up. Hopefully by that point, that stance is so unpopular that he can't get away with supporting it. That's the goal that we want, that stance is just simply so unpopular and whatever's going on right now is just finally solved and there's actual freedom and self-determination for Palestinians. Otherwise, you know where we would be right now? Basically the entire Middle East would be nuked. If it was up to Marco Rubio, he would have dropped a nuke on Iran and he would have said that it was necessary. He'll do anything. We saw what Larry Ellison previously posted, the largest private donor to the IDF, one of the largest shareholders now of TikTok, CEO of Oracle. What did he say? He stated in the email exchange that was leaked to the public, he stated that Marco Rubio will be a good friend to Israel after he vetted him. You guys know Larry Ellison, his son David Ellison just recently bought Paramount, CBS, now CNN, buying up all of these news networks. He basically vetted Marco Rubio. He hosted a fundraising campaign for Marco Rubio. So what's also important to note is that right now it's JD Vance or Marco Rubio. JD Vance is not anti-Israel. I wouldn't even say JD Vance tries to portray himself as America first. I don't buy it. I think that maybe there's some issues he'll tilt on. I think he is more up to date on what's going on social media. He's more up to date on what the younger generation feels. 100%. And you could tell because I've seen him interact with some of those America First accounts. I've even seen him interact with Groyper accounts. So you could tell he's watching. He hears what everybody is saying. Does that mean that JD Vance would stop vetoing any action against Israel at the United Nations? No. Does that mean JD Vance is going to reel Israel in when it comes to settlements? No. Does that mean JD Vance is going to care if there's a mass expulsion event of Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank? No. Even if it affects Syria and Jordan and Lebanon, still won't care. You think that JD Vance will try to turn a blind eye. Now, if it starts to affect the oil prices, if it starts to affect the stock market, then yeah, maybe he'll care. Maybe a little bit like Trump, a little bit like Trump, and then just slightly further away. Marco Rubio, whole other place. I can't explain it enough. We have to make sure that guy never gets the presidential seat. We have to keep him as far away from office as possible. Anybody but JD Vance. Anybody but Marco Rubio. We just have to keep him as far away from office as possible because he will blow up the planet. I'm so certain on that for you guys. Randy Fine, that's exactly who he's wishing for. I hope that after Trump leaves office, Randy Fine also just leaves with him and disintegrates away, and we never see him in office again because basically Randy Fine is a Trump concoction. Without Donald Trump's support, Randy Fine would not be in Congress right now. If Donald Trump stated, get everybody, do whatever you can, and get Randy Fine out of office, Randy Fine would be out of office. Donald Trump has a lot of sway and power. I think the one thing that staunch MAGA allies and supporters of Trump love more than Israel is Trump himself, and they'd be willing to abandon Israel for Trump if Trump said so. If Trump said that Israel's treating them wrong, they would leave and they would side with him. They would. We've seen that before. So in this case, I wish we'd see something like that where Trump starts to call these figures out, but he never will. And Randy Fine, as long as he's in office, he's going to do everything he can to basically entrench the United States and Israel together. Until even after he leaves office, there's no way to undo that tie, which is already happening right now with this new Senate bill, the House bill regarding deepening our ties with Israel with technology and everything else. So That's it for this video, guys. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you click the subscribe button below and give it a thumbs up as well. It helps me reach more people like you. And if you guys haven't yet, definitely consider joining as a member. If you click the join button below next to the subscribe button, it has a star around it. Click that button now. You can watch member-only videos I do pretty often on here. When you comment as a member, I see those comments right away first. You can also use those fun member-only emojis like the JFK emoji, censored emoji, everything else. It supports my channel. It helps me out so I can make more of these videos for you guys. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye, everybody.